before we take up those case studies, I would like to suggest to you, how do you approach a case study? I have gone through the examination papers for the past few years, and once you understand the approach to it, I'm sure none of you are going to have any problem handling these case studies. And in fact, at some point in time, after 2-3 seconds, you realize, give you any case study and you'll be able to do it, because your mind will be wired in that manner. And we will do 2-3 sessions and take as many case studies as possible, not to understand that case study, but to understand how a case study is approached. Now, how do you approach? Number one, you must clearly understand, which I mentioned in the last session also, the difference between law and ethics. Probably the laws are codified ethics. So laws are by and large a subset of ethics. Now, in a question, obviously there will be nothing relating to laws per se, because there is no choice there. When there is a law, you have to follow that law, principle, period, and closed. I mean, you don't have a choice. You have a choice when it's a gray area, when it is not codified, when it is not written in black and white what is right and what is wrong. Because ethics is all about right and wrong. When it gets codified and gets written in a law, then the choice ceases. That is right and else is wrong, whether you personally like it or not. Your personal value system do not have much of a role to play, where law is clearly defined. But all the questions that I've seen so far, and there may be some other questions may be different, do not relate to law per se. They are talking about the gray area of absence of law and then what you do, or interpretation of law, then what you can do. Obviously, you can't violate a law, but in an interpretation, you can follow particular. Now, what is ethical? And I'm repeating what I said last time. Ethical is your understanding of right and wrong. Again, I'm talking of areas beyond law, not law. Law, you don't have a choice. Right and wrong, which is accepted by the society. Generally, if somebody is speaking, please keep your mics on silent mode. I keep requesting that, but some of you don't listen. Muhammad Talib, I think you. Yes, thank you. No, why did you close your video? Is your video linked with audio? Keep your, again, you. Anyway, so one is, you must understand what is right and wrong. Second, what is acceptable by the society. And your common sense will work here. You don't have to study Plato, Aristotle, or Hegel, or Marx for this. No, it's all common sense. Ethics is common sense. Because inherently, I'm really surprised that Muhammad Talib, please shut up, or I'll be out of from here. You're still not mute. Either you don't know how to mute yourself. Anyway, let me mute you then. Okay. Second is what is accepted by the society. And third is whether that action of yours will do a long-term harm in the long term. These are the three primary considerations, and we'll keep coming to these as we take up case studies. So you must understand this very clearly, the difference between law and ethics. Laws are by and large a subset. You remember that slide, that's concentric circles that I showed you, that ethics or ethical values can be codified, and once they become codified, they become laws. So for example, for civil servants, there is a code of ethics. There is a codified conduct, and you can't go beyond it. And I will take up, time permitting, after the 10 cases that you all have listed out, I picked up a couple of case studies from examination papers to illustrate the point that I'm making. Okay, so with these words, we start the session, and the first on the list is Mona Lisa Das. Are you around, Mona Lisa? Oh God, this is absolutely unpardonable. Huh? Joyshri Paul, are you around?
Yes, sir.
Briefly narrate the case study, and all of you listen to this carefully. I will comment in the end. I will ask you all to comment in the beginning. Yes, Joyshri, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So the case study goes like, you are a civil servant posted in a state where elections were recently held. The newly elected chief minister had promised to ban alcohol in several of his election campaigns as well as his election manifesto, which was widely praised and supported by women of the state. Fulfilling his electoral promise, the chief minister has ordered a blanket ban on the sale of alcohol in the state. Following the ban, concerns have been raised about the feasibility of the ban and whether the government should interfere in what is considered by many to be a matter of personal choice. So the questions are, sir, is it understandable?
Please
Sir,
continue audible. Please go ahead. Yeah.
The questions are, who are the stakeholders in this case and how they are affected by the ban?
Okay, let's stop.
Okay,
Let's discuss the first question. Repeat the question again and let me get the response. Who are the stakeholders in this case?
Yes, and how they are affected.
Now, will somebody volunteer to answer this question? It's very simple, straightforward. Who are the stakeholders? Okay, Aditya Dev.
So the stakeholders firstly is the government, because it gets a large number earns a large amount of revenue from the sales of it. The second are the sellers or the distributors. The third one is the consumer and his direct family if they are impacted from it, and also the producers. So I can get 5 stakeholders here.
Excellent. And what was the second part of the question?
How these stakeholders are affected. Sir, I have given one more stakeholder, which is society, like larger part in society in long run.
Okay, I think that's a good addition, because when he says individuals, probably they're a part of the society, but in the long-term context, I think society as a whole can be a separate stakeholder. That's a good idea, good one. And then how are they impacted? Yes, I see the hand of Rudrashish. Rudrashish, you go ahead. Adit, you have answered the question. Yes.
Sir, they are impacted in the manner that their income reduces.
When you say sir, now listen to this carefully. I'll keep butting in just to explain to you how to get the best out of it. You have to go stakeholder wise. When you say they, who are you talking about? There are 5 sets of stakeholders, and you have to say how each stakeholder gets impacted by this policy, starting with, say, consumer, government, society, individual, whoever. But you have to go, your answer has to be organized. It can't be jumbled. So you go one by one. Yes, Rudrashish, go ahead.
Yes. So the first stakeholder, as Aditya mentioned, was the government. So the government gets a huge number of revenue from the sale of the alcohol. And so the income of governor reduces in this aspect. Next comes the producers, even the businessmen who are involved in such activities, their business is completely shattered after such a statement from the chief minister. Then comes the consumers. For them, their personal choice is hampered. Their right to enjoy certain activities in a certain manner, that gets impacted out of this. And largely as a society, it creates a bit of the stability is dismantled out of this, so which affects the society as well.
Okay, Rudrashish, you are fine. I think in the context of society, look at it from the context of law and order, how it impacts the law and order. Because prohibition or non-prohibition does impact law and order. It does impact your social behavior. So in that sense, that's the 5th point. Joyshri, go ahead. Next question.
The next question is blanket ban on alcohol a feasible option?
Okay, anyone volunteering? So Prashant, please go ahead.
Yeah, sir. I think that the blanket ban on the prohibition is partially feasible because it is basically the constraint on the supply side of an alcohol. We need to also think how to reduce the demand of an alcohol, so that it should be a two-pronged strategy where we are focusing both on supply side as well as demand side.
Now, again, I'm glad what you said. Joyshri, read the question again and Prashant, listen to it carefully, whether you answered this question or you answered something else. This is very important for all of you. You know, you should read the questions very carefully. You know, I'm surprised that my messages are not read clearly by some of you. So if you don't get into a habit of understanding what is, Joshri, narrate the question again. Now, where is Joshri gone?
The connection snapped, I guess.
Okay. See, the question, if I remember correctly, was not in terms of what should be done.
Okay,
You have answered the question on what should be done.
Okay.
The question was, can it be done? See, there is try and understand the difference between can and should. Should is normative in the sense what should be done. But can be done has to be answered in that context of whether complete prohibition is possible. That's the question. You are telling me that how it can be done, how it should be done. Prashant, you understand the difference between the two questions. And I hope others are also understanding this difference. You know, if you understand the question clearly, answer only that part. You don't have to answer other things. Maybe the next part of the question would be required your answer. Okay. Anyone would like to answer this question? Joshri, are you back? No.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
Be around, because see, you are
Sir, network issue,
just hold on. Abhi, that question has not been answered. Tanish.
Yes, sir. So basically, when we are talking about the stakeholders involved, we'll start about the government because
no, that has been answered. I'm not. See, I would request all of you to lend me your ears. And if you don't do that very specifically, you will never be able to answer the questions in the manner they should be answered. So, Joyshri, read the question again, the second part of the question. Second question.
Is blanket ban on alcohol a feasible option?
Period. Stop. I want answer only to this question. Okay. Anyone? No. Those that have spoken, Ashish, go ahead. Unmute yourself and answer.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, basically, complete blanket ban on alcohol is dangerous for economical and social purposes too. First one is economical purpose. Economical purpose in the sense that state is totally running its own business. First of all, from that they can use in the purpose of society's development. Second, economical. How I am saying, economical.
Ashish, hold on. Again, you are answering the question: should there be a ban? The question is: can it be done? Understand the difference between can and should.
Yes.
See, all of you have to understand these words very carefully and answer the question in a very focused manner as to what it means. Is it possible? Whether it should be done or not, we'll discuss that later on. Each one of you is answering that this will be. What will be the problems? What are the problems? Can it be done?
No, sir. It can be done. Recently, we are seeing the example of Bihar, where government has banned from last 4 to 5 years, but still they are having problem, smuggling and all that things.
So let me close it down, because you all are not appreciating the point that I'm trying to highlight. You know, there have been states that have actually banned liquor, Gujarat being one of them, and fairly successful. It doesn't mean that there will not be problems in banning it. So if I were you, I would answer, there are already examples of state having banned prohibition or banned liquor and imposed prohibition. Even though there are problems, it has been done. So it can be done. Period. The answer closes. Why do you want to go into merits? There will be other question there. Usually go on to the next question.
Sir, the next question is identify that the issues may arise while enforcing the ban and steps to handle those issues as a civil servant.
There you are. Now who all had answered earlier these questions? You are jumping. See, if you all, see, I'm not discussing case studies here for the sake of answering questions in the case study. I'm trying to make you all understand the approach of writing an answer to a case study. And each part of the question will have to come in separate paras so that the examiner can understand that this relates to the first part, this relates to the second part. That will be the difference between the numbers that you will get and the other chap will get. The answer would be the same, but the presentation is different. So are you all getting the point? Now the third part is the most important part, where you will have to do all the explanation. How would, in your way, what are the implications? And rightly, you can talk in terms of economic implications, financial implications, social implications. You can write that. And then the fourth para would be, what steps can the government take? Now, why am I telling you all this? I'm not giving you an answer. You all know the answer. I mean, going by whatever has been spoken so far, it's not that you don't know the answer. The structuring is wrong. You must look at the questions very carefully, and that is the reason where I keep telling you, please read my messages carefully. You don't do that. You have to get into the habit of understanding what is being said. If you don't understand, then seek clarification. That's a different matter. Seek it from me, from your colleagues. But for heaven's sake, don't jump. You understand the questions. No, I'm not going into the details of the answer. You all know the answer. The session today is how to approach a case study and how to structure your answer. I'm not giving you answers, mind you. I'm not even equipped to give you answers. I may have a point of view on that, but I'm not. I am concerned about the manner in which you come across. I hope you've understood this case study in that context. Can I see some shaking of heads and or no, yes, or if not understand? Is there any issue with any one of you? Any question on this case study? Any question that you would like to ask? Siddhant.
Yes, sir. So good evening, sir. I had a small doubt in how we dealt with the second question, like the feasibility of implementing the overall blanket ban. So, sir, when we analyze the feasibility, shouldn't we provide the reasons for our stance on that particular question?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, sir, in this particular case, how could we have done that?
No,
like
what I would say, somebody was rightly pointing out, there are economic implications, there are financial implications, there are social implications. You'll write those implications. What are the problems associated with imposition of prohibition? You'll write those. And then you'll give your own point of view as to how you overcome them. And don't feel, nervous on the point that you don't have answers how it can be handled. Even having put in 38 years, I don't have an absolute answer on how prohibition can be handled. And let me assure you, USA did not have it. They had to recall prohibition. So don't worry about the final answers that you have. What they are seeking is how do you approach it, how positively you're approaching it, and never start with the answer, it can't be done. It should be done. No. Without even discussing, you are starting by saying it can't be done. You lost the marks. You have to discuss, and in the final para, you come to a conclusion based on what you've discussed earlier. Is that okay?
Okay.
Gayatri, you have your hand up because I don't want to spend more time on this case study. The other case studies also.
I just wanted to ask one thing. When we are being asked, can it be done? Is it an administrative opinion or a personal opinion, sir?
No, it has to be an administrative. If you again look at the question, if you were a public servant, what is it saying? Joyshri, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sir. Yes, sir.
What does it
say?
Here you are.
Noted.
Gayatri, what I am trying to tell all of you, and I hope you note it, please read the question very carefully. Now, if you are not in the habit of reading things carefully, you will not be able to do it in the exam. And to begin with, please read my instructions and messages very carefully. And I'm going to test you on that. I ask you that do this, and someone is questioning me in a personal message. Sir, I said, you read my message carefully. Some of you have really taken to task. I told them, please, for heaven's sake, read my message carefully. You're not in that. We all, as I keep saying, we all belong to Maggie culture, 2-minute noodles. Fat. And some of you were in the habit of writing instead of Y-O-U, they will write you. These are habits. I mean, it's good for your friends. Please get out of that habit. Get out of the habit of slang, not looking at it, carefully. You have to read the questions carefully. Once you read the question carefully, I guarantee after 3 such sessions, you will be able to handle any case study I'm telling you. Because as I gaze from you all, you know the answer. The question is, how do you put it? Okay, I think we've spent a lot of time on the first case study, as it would normally happen. Is Monisa Das still around, or she's still not here? I'm only announcing a name time and again because, you know, this is not acceptable. I mean, I'm investing so much time on this, so much effort. All of you are here, and someone who volunteers here and is not here with no information. Okay. Adiba, are you around?
Yes, sir.
Adiba, please narrate your case study and then we'll discuss it.
Sure, sir. Actually, the case starts with the winning of BJP in the state UP elections in 1991. So just after the election results, Anil sir was appointed as a director in the Department of Information and Public Relations, Government of India. So basically, his main duty was to report on the media coverage and, of course, to advise how to maintain the relation between the public and the government. So one day when he reached the CM's residence, so he found there that there was a discussion going on the Etawah by-election campaigns. So at that point of time, actually the chief secretary and DGP was also present. So so there were many meetings scheduled for CM and he was unwilling to attend all of them. So that is why he decided to cancel at least 2 rallies. So at this, DGP and Chief Secretary nodded, and we find that later on they nod their head. They nod at every decision what CMs basically make. So at this decision of CM's, Sir had a different opinion. So he advised that it wasn't appropriate to basically cancel the rally. As beforehand, people prepare a lot of things and they basically, very enthusiastic to hear the member. So that is why after hearing this, after listening to this, CM wasn't agreed. Then finally he agreed to that and he decided not to cancel the rallies. And again, the DGP and Chief Secretary nodded. So at the end of the case, Sir raised 3 questions. So the very first question was it appropriate on the part of a civil servant to advise on the matter which is completely political in nature? So, sir, if you don't mind, can I try to answer this?
So I'd like to just add to the case study that she's given. There is a critical part that got missed out. So I would like to add that before you answer. As I entered the room, there was the Chief Minister appeared upset over the 7 election rallies.
Yes, sir.
And then both the DGP and Chief Secretary vehemently agreed with him that he may not be able to address that. By which time I intervened and said, sir, I was a district magistrate a few months ago. And when a Chief Minister comes to a district, there's a lot of preparation, anticipation, expectation. So even if you go for 5 minutes, just say, Namaskar, don't make a speech, but don't cancel it. Now, what happened thereafter is important, which probably got missed out. The Chief Minister looked at me angrily and said, do you think I will be able to attend these rallies? And when he said this, the Chief Secretary started nudging me to keep quiet. This is very important because there's a question to this. He was nudging me to keep quiet. And then I made a statement. Sir, my job is to give my advice, sir. Ultimately, your decision is yours. And as I said that, the nudging became even stronger for me to shut up. There was pin drop silence for 15 seconds, after which the Chief Minister turned towards me and said, Anil, I think you are right. The moment he said, I think you are right, the Chief Secretary immediately stopped nudging and said, yes, sir, he's right. Now, these are very important aspects of this case study. Now, the first question, you read it out and answer what is your take on that.
Okay, sir. So the first question is that, is it appropriate on the part of a civil servant to advise on the matter which is completely, political in nature? So I found it on the various websites. So basically from the document of Code of Conduct of a Civil Servant and the website of Information and Public Relations, I found that as basically a director is responsible to maintain a relation between public and the government and not the public and the political party. And as at the point of time, the CM was acting as a member of the basically party rather than a CM. So in my opinion, it wasn't appropriate. And with the document of model code of conduct of election campaigns, so basically there is a point which suggests that no candidate and no party use government vehicle, aircraft, or an official for the elections. So basically, as at this, the advice of an official may lead to the victory of that ruling party in that constituency. So that is why, of course, basically it is unfair for the other competitors to not have such a kind of advisor. So that is why it wasn't appropriate. So hence, so this was my answer.
Okay. Any other opinion on this? Rishabh?
Good evening, sir. So the question says that, is it appropriate for the civil servant to suggest CM on this political matter? Sir, in my opinion, in policy making or administration, there can be no decision which is absolutely abstract from politics, first point. Second point, as a public servant, there are certain principles which can be applied here. First is evidence-based decision making. Second is objectivity. And third is collaboration. The political executive and the permanent executive has to be working in a collaborative manner to make any policy. Be it an election rally, it is a law and order and it is an administrative issue. And the civil servant, if he or she is using all these principles and advising the political executive on a matter in a decent manner, it should be ethically right because it is in the larger good of law and order and administration.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Manisha?
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, sir, my take on this, I would like to focus on the appropriateness part of the question, which tends me to say that at that moment when you advised the chief minister to visit those areas, that was an opinion or a suggestion that you put forth, which was politically acceptable and it was feasible. So he could have, the chief minister could have easily refused to listen to your suggestion. But when he scrutinized and gave it a thought and decided that he would visit, and he addressed the points you made. So I think it was, I won't call it inappropriate because it was not something which
okay,
was.
Thank you, Manisha.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for cutting you out because once the essence come out, I'll stop you because otherwise we'll run out of time. Shobhit, you want to say something?
Sure, sir.
Sir, I think as a civil servant, one should avoid giving personal advices on political issues. Thank you.
Okay, so let me give you my take on it. And all these takes are correct. So long as you can justify it, it's not material because this is not legal. The rightness of it is that being, as I thought and I reflect on it, being also director public relations, the chief minister in his capacity as chief minister or maybe head of political party of that has to maintain a particular relationship with the public at large. So chief minister appearing or reneging on a commitment that he makes in terms of election rally, to my mind, was a poor, bad public relations exercise. That is one. So there's other case study where I feel that I shouldn't have done it. But in this particular case here, I felt that it was my duty to tell him my point of view. This is the second point. So what I was doing was I was only advising him. I was not taking a decision on his part. In an advisory capacity, which will come in subsequent question, is that a civil servant has to be very fair to himself in terms of advising on what he thinks and what is right or wrong. So the advice itself can never be, so to say, wrong, so to say. Because advice is based on your understanding. So long as you're not intellectually dishonest, you're giving the advice which you feel correct, any advice is done. There's no harm in giving an advice. In fact, if you read the entire case study, I say that, sir, the choice is yours. You have to take a call. I'm only giving you my experience as district magistrate, where when a chief minister came, it could be done. So we are stopping it here. But I think the approach is fine so long as you can carry that as an argument. Go to the second question.
Should a civil servant advise, basically, should a civil servant have given any unsolicited advice?
No, this question you asked. The second question is, there is Chief Secretary and DGP standing there, also agreeing with him.
Yes, sir. That's a third question.
Okay. Now,
Yes, sir.
one, should they have agreed and then disagreed, or agreed again, which shows some sort of an intellectual dishonesty. You can't have both. You can't say that you are right and then you can't say that Anil is also right. Which they base their opinion on the view of the chief minister. So here is a larger ethical issue. Whether your advice should be your advice, or you're looking at the person you are advising and advising according to his choice. So you're not being just to yourself. To me, this is a much larger issue in the case study, that whether as civil servants, you can disagree or agree that the advice should not have been given. Fair enough. The first question. But the second is very clear, that you can't keep advising him in a manner which suits him. So when Kalyan Singh was angry with me to begin with, they agreed with Kalyan Singh. When Kalyan Singh agreed with me, they agreed with Kalyan Singh. So they have no point of view. So to me, if this sort of a question comes, you will have to spend more time on this aspect rather than the first question. You get the point, Adiva?
Yes, sir.
It's very important, because there would be other case studies. I'm looking for more case studies, and we'll have 2-3 sessions on all the case studies, and some I'll pick up from. In the last session, we discussed a case study wherein I advised the chief minister when I was not with him. I was sitting here in Delhi in a different assignment and I advised him, which was wrong. But being a part of his team, and team means people sitting there and fully in charge of public relations matters, and that was my job to see that he doesn't do anything which is contrary to his image building or public relations exercise. I thought it appropriate to give him that advice. And even now I feel I did the right thing. But I do feel what happened thereafter was grossly incorrect. First, a senior officer stopping a junior officer from presenting his point of view. This is unethical. I mean, ultimately, ethics demands that each one's point of view should be heard. You may agree or disagree. But if all officers are directed to give only one advice, then what is the advantage of advice? I hope this aspect is understood by all of you. Any question on this before we go on to the next case study? I would suggest those of you who haven't read this case study, read it, because if not exactly this, similar case study could come. Then we have Monilasa here. No, not as yet. Gayatri, you have a question? Yes.
Sir, I wanted to ask, what is the source? Is it your first book or your second book?
This is the second book.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Then we have Aditya Dev. Aditya, you are around?
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead. Narrate your case study.
So I'll be narrating the case study from the book Ethical Dilemmas of Civil Servant. So this case study is baptism by fire. So it so happened that in the aftermath of Indira Gandhi's assassination in 1984, there were huge riots and mass atrocities committed against the Sikh community. And at that point in time, sir was posted as SDM and officer in charge of municipal corporation in Hardoi. So even there was some attempts were done by a particular political party to target the Sikhs community. But for the administration's alertness, these mass atrocities against the Sikhs were averted. Although there were some incidents, isolated incidents against the Sikhs. So it so happened that it came to sir's notice that a certain MLA of a certain party was conspiring against this Sikh community. He was trying to instigate the Sikh community for the crime that it was committed against the Prime Minister. And so to prevent such an act being committed, sir invoked the National Security Act and tried to pass it by getting the district magistrate's permission. However, the MLA was a powerful, had yielded some influence in the administration. So the district magistrate, when he got this request from sir to invoke the NSA, he was a bit reluctant to sir. Although he agreed to sir's points, but he was a bit reluctant. And in meanwhile, this information got out, and the MLA got to know about it. So the MLA, by using his influence in the upper reaches of the government, got to the higher reaches. So sir was summoned to the in Lucknow by the appointment secretary, and sir was asked why he has used this NSA against the particular MLA. Sir explained his point, and the secretary also agreed to his point. But still, he requested sir to withdraw the case or the against this MLA. It so happened that sir told that he will not withdraw the case as he felt it was right and it was in the hand of the district magistrate. So the district magistrate had the complete liberty to withdraw the case. Soon after this, some days later, sir was transferred out of the post in from Hardoi. And it so happened that after a few days, there was an election going to be held, and the misgivings of the doings of this MLA got out of the public, and it also came out that he had influenced the transfer of sir. So the MLA was thrown out of the party. He did not got a ticket, although he tried to contest elections as an independent candidate. He lost the elections. So, sir, this was the end of.
So, what are the questions?
Sir, in this chapter has no questions, sir.
No, but you must have a question. You've raised a case study. You must have a question.
Sir.
So, what are your questions?
Sir, the question is that do civil servants need to reel under the political pressure or the pressure when they are faced with such kind of political?
Let me reframe this question.
Yes, sir.
Let me reframe this question.
Sir.
Should a civil servant go ahead with such a case against an MLA and face the consequence of a transfer? It could be this question, or the question could be, what are the likely consequences for a civil servant for taking action in such a case? This could be what are the possible consequences of? One, of course, you saw, I was transferred out. That is a consequence that you're aware. But it could be asked, what could be the other consequences? And then you'll have to understand your reading as to what have civil servants faced as a consequence of taking action against powerful political parties. Rudrashish, you want to say something? You have your hand up.
Sir, could you just repeat your first question that you framed?
I'll come to that. Manisha, you want to say something? You are mute, Manisha. Unmute yourself.
I'm so sorry, sir.
Yes,
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I would like to answer the questions that you have just now asked. So I think that if here the issue was regarding the National Security Act, and if a civil servant in a situation is imposing such an intense law on an MLA, and that law is valid as per his actions are concerned, I think the civil servant must go ahead. It's his moral duty, and also it is ethical for a civil servant to go ahead and fall, unless the civil servant is not well versed with law and where it is applied. We have to see, if it is applied in the appropriate sense. I think a civil servant, be it any consequence, it's the moral duty. And if it's actually hampering our national security and such a grave issue of grave concern, I think the civil servant should go ahead. And even if the consequences transfer, as I have heard once, I would like to quote one of your sayings that transfer is like death for a civil servant. It will happen. So it should not stop us from doing what should be the moral duty. And in other cases where the consequences could be bitter, like there can be death threats, there can be other political pressure, giving posts that are not so-called unnecessary, or they are not that lucrative posts. I think that should not be a root cause of stepping back as we take the oath of the Constitution. So I think in this scenario, in what our country is facing, we need a bureaucracy which is more intense on integrity.
Thank you, Manisha. I think we have the same people raising their hands. We have Santani Das. Please go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, as per me, if I was viewing this answer as this answer question demands, what are the certain ethical values which a civil servant must possess? So in this case, for example, the first will be integrity, because when he came to know about that a MLA is doing such activities, which is obviously against the law, so it is his professional duty and professional integrity to take action. From this, we come to know that he is impartial. It means he's politically impartial and he's fulfilling the duty as per the constitution and the law. And the third shows his resilience and dedication for the service, because in this, the consequences, he obviously knows that there will be grave consequences, as someone said about the death threats and the transfer, but this shows his dedication for the service and his resilience to continue in this path. So I would try to answer on these ethical values which he must possess, and try to answer on that point.
Now, I hope all of you have listened very carefully to what Santani has just said. This is how a question has to be answered. The answers are coming from you. It's brilliantly articulated. You know, she's saying the same thing which others had said, but she's captured in a manner which is very logical, and she's used phraseology of the values and then fitted her statements on those values. That's how an answer has to be given. You will get brilliant marks if you structure your answer in a manner as was structured by, your name is Sayantani, is that right?
Yes, sir, Shantani.
Shantani. Brilliantly answered. One is, just saying it's right or wrong. Other is, you are putting them in pockets of values that a civil servant must possess. And she recounted 3 such values. She talked about integrity, she talked about resilience, she talked about impartiality. Now, if you can use these phraseology and structure them, your answer is done. Okay, so I think we've spent a lot of time on that. Otherwise, we'll run out of time. I'm switching over to the next one. Siddhant, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Please, go ahead. Narrate your study.
All right. So the case study is like, A has recently started working as a cyber security analyst at a government intelligence organization.
Bring your mic, Siddhant, bring the mic close to your mouth. There is something, or you speak closer to
put on my earphone, Bluetooth earphone. Sir, am I audible right now?
Now it's much better, yes.
All right. So, sir, I start over again. A has recently started working as a cyber security analyst at a government intelligence organization. So, during the course of his work, he stumbles upon documents which reveal that the government is spying on the leaders of opposition parties with alleged Maoist links. He discusses this matter with his superior officers, who tell him that though the spying was illegal, it was essential for national security. They also tell A that the sanction for spying came from the highest echelons of the government. They further warn A not to divulge the facts of this case to anyone else in the organization, and especially no one on the outside, as it may lead to his dismissal from the organization or even his arrest for treason. Now, the following are the options that A has, and we need to evaluate the merits and demerits of each of these. The options are as follows. First, do nothing, as he does not want to risk losing his job or end up in jail for treason. Second, talk to the head of the organization to get his opinion on the matter and then they do as he says. Third is send an anonymous letter to the press leaking the details of the case. The fourth is go to the press directly with the details of the case. So we need to also give our supporting arguments if we are going forth with a particular option, and what would be the reasons if we are going with that particular option. So this is the case, sir.
Okay. Any volunteers to answer this tricky question? I see no volunteers. Okay, since we have no volunteers.
Sorry, sir, just to add one more thing. We need not restrict ourselves to these 4 options. If needed, we can also come up with certain manipulations to arrive at the best choice. This is what have been mentioned.
Okay, this has to be answered in 150 words.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Siddhant, do you have an answer to that?
Sir, not really about
Okay,
the
hold
approach.
on, no worries, no worries. We'll answer that. Aditya Dev has raised his hand. Let's hear him out before I give my comments.
So, sir, I'm trying it. So, sir, there was a terminology that alleged terms. So, there is like there might be a possibility that they are being in a contact with the Maoists. So, the intelligence agency is not per se doing, or they are not surveillancing their private sphere, but they are just looking if they are having any kind of connection with the Maoist or not. So, sir, I don't think that there is any kind of apprehension that we should exercise. It is nothing political. It is something that's from the national security perspective. So, if it is going to if it is going in the political arena, then there should be some kind of resistance. But from this point of view, I don't see any kind of resistance coming from.
Okay, if I were you, I would look at the options that are totally ruled out and then discuss options which are possibilities. So the third and fourth options that Rishabh, you wanted to say something? Unmute yourself, Rishabh.
Yes, sir. So I think we can quote different Supreme Court judgments where they have given different doctrines on how to, balance the individual concerns of privacy versus the national security arguments by doctrine of proportionality, where there has to be certain facts and certain data which has to prove that there is certain threat before we really do surveillance on an individual's privacy. So I think we can quote Supreme Court judgments. That was my addition.
See, my suggestion to you is come to Supreme Court judgment to buttress your point of view, but don't start with Supreme Court judgment. When you make a point, you can use Supreme Court judgment to reinforce the argument that you're giving, but you can't start with Supreme Court judgment. As I said, I will start with.
Sir, we can all. Sir, we can. Okay, sir.
Yeah, hold on. See, let us look at the options which are totally should be thrown out of the window and explain why they should be thrown out of the window. Number one, leaking it to the media. It's unethical for an officer to leak anything to the media directly. So that goes out. Secondly, talking directly to the media again is violation of code of conduct. Even with whatever wrong is going on, you can't go to the media. So these two options are out. So it makes your task easy. Then you talk in terms of the first two options. Number one, do nothing about it, keep quiet, or go to a head of the department and explain to him. And thirdly, you can talk in terms of any other option that you have in mind, right? So you see why I'm explaining all this to you. You have to go about it logically. You sift it out, take these two out. Now, obviously, as a civil servant, if a wrong gets to be known to you, you can't ignore it. The question is, how do you address it? And addressing is not going to the media, not digging to the press. To me, this second option appears to be the best of the four options in the sense of going to the head of the department and sharing your thoughts with him. I would have done that, frankly speaking. And there were instances that I did that. When I got to know of a wrong that is going on or which was illegal, here the term is used as not wrong. There's no ethics being talked about here. It is illegal what they were doing. Now, my job is limited to the extent of making people aware of illegality of the job that is being done and responsible people, not an outsider. So one of the best of the four options is going to the head of the department, explaining to him, and maybe he may give a perspective to me which justifies the actions that are taken, which can then you can bring in the Supreme Court or the balance of convenience. Any other argument could come. So what I'm trying to, the questions that will be asked of you, there are no blacks and whites in that. There's no finality in it. It is the options that are available to you. And hopefully many of you will qualify for the civil service. You will come across such situations where it is not clearly defined. It might appear to be illegal, but may not actually be, because you may not be fully conversant with the facts. Now, assuming that they were being tapped. Now, for tapping, there is a procedure laid down in the government. Tapping itself is not illegal, but if you don't follow that procedure, is illegal. So, for example, I know for sure that the Home Secretary, Government of India, has the authority to authorize tapping of phones. Now, if I were to go to my senior officer, I would have done my homework as to how it can possibly be done, because the objective is not incorrect. try and understand the difference between the ultimate objective that is sought to be achieved and the process involved in it. The process is illegal in the context of the process not being laid down, process not being followed. So if I am going to my boss, I will take to him all these details. Take a similar example from my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, where my minister asked me to suspend the deputy director. Now, he was legally authorized to suspend the deputy director. There was nothing wrong. But I found it ethically wrong to suspend an officer who had done no wrong. Now, how do I correct it? I correct it by looking at another rule which enables me to route the file through the chief secretary. Now, these are gray areas where you are getting into. In this particular instance, when I go to the boss, and that of the 4 options, that's the best option that I can think of, I'll go to the boss, equipped with all the tools with me, and I'll present to him, sir, how about seeking a formal permission, and that is also a secret, from the Home Secretary for doing the surveillance. He may agree or disagree. The chances are that he could agree. The chances are that he may not have looked at that aspect, because he is also, by and large, interested in the ultimate objective. He would not consciously violate a law. Are you all getting this point? So you have to do, as I think Santhony very rightly put her in, it's the job of a civil servant to be well informed about the rules and regulations on what is right and what is wrong. In the entire process, what is wrong? Surveillance itself is not wrong, but the process adopted for surveillance is wrong. Because in the case study, it's given illegal. All surveillance is not illegal. Surveillance can actually be carried out. Then the second part could be, that is not asked in the case study. Suppose they ask that the top boss disagrees. So then you can do only as much you can do. You are not doing anything illegal. You have come to know that someone is doing illegal. You brought it to the nose of the correct party. Then it is for them to decide whether they want to continue with the illegality or not. What are the options available with you? Proceed on leave. I would not suggest that. What are the options? Go to the media. That I would not suggest. Leak it. I would not suggest that. It is all unethical. So the least unethical of that is that you do your job and then you sit tight. As simple as that. Okay. There are no perfect solutions. What I'm saying is not absolute correct, but given the set of circumstances, that's the best way forward. Does anyone else have an observation? Rishabh, you wanted to say something else. Please go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Sir, I completed my argument with that Supreme Court judgment thing. That was all I had to say.
So what then can be done is, when you go to your boss, you can go with these Supreme Court judgments and you can write in your answer that I'll go equipped with the Supreme Court judgment and the process, and advise him that this is a possible way forward for the same objective. The boss may still agree or not agree with you. That's a different matter. It doesn't really matter. Have you got the point, all of you? Any nods? I've seen so many people going out of video. Either they've lost touch. Please open your videos. Prashant, you wanted to say something.
Sir, related to this case, as well as on a broader sense, sir, why it is called unethical for a civil servant to go for a media? It will bring transparency. After exercising all his means, can a civil servant go to the media? If it's a very grave issue.
No, it's not a gray issue. It's a black and white issue. The code of conduct does not allow you to do that, period.
Okay, in any case, you cannot go.
No, you can't. See, try and understand what is already codified. You can't violate, whether you like it or not.
Okay, sir.
The code of conduct does not allow an officer, unless he is of a particular seniority, like as Secretary of Government of India, I was authorized to go to the media. But a joint secretary will have to first seek permission before going to the media. He can't. You can't go to the media. Imagine a scenario where every officer goes to the media. It will be chaos.
Sir, but there should be, just an advice here. So there shouldn't be some way, because it will bring transparency. If no one is listening in the system.
Try and understand. You can't reveal and fight battles. Every individual can't do it. Government is huge. Everyone goes to the media and talks his own language. There is a mechanism through which you talk to media. It's given in the government.
Okay, sir.
You can't have everybody going to the media and talking about it. Imagine a department comprising 100 people and 100 people different languages they speak to the media. There will be total chaos. Governance cannot happen that way. Okay.
Okay. Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, how about if we take his point, how about social media? Is it same for that?
No, I see whether media includes social media. You have no, see, government runs in a particular discipline.
Okay.
Everyone can't be allowed to go and start singing in the media. No, there is a discipline. There is a methodology. The government negotiates. Transparency is different. Transparency is when you decide, when you take a decision, it should be known to the public. But in the process of taking a decision, if you keep going to the media, it's like a running commentary of a one-day cricket match where you don't know what is the ultimate result. You will keep talking about every ball. It's not there's a difference between running commentary and the governance part. No.
Yeah.
So that's how it is. Okay. So we'll close this. I know there are many hands there, but we'll have to close this because otherwise we'll run out of time, big time. Okay. Is Shruti there? Shruti, you were there. Oh, she's not there. Oh, she had told me to read out her. She could not appear here. So she's sitting in a library, she said. Okay, Manisha, you can go ahead with your case.
Yeah. So shall I start?
Yes.
Yeah. So my case study is from the book Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant. It's from the chapter titled as Silent Conscience. So here is the context was, it was on Republic Day, wherein there was an assemblage of bureaucrats in the Rajpath to witness the parade that takes place. And Sir was also one of them. And there was a special sitting arrangement and an enclosure meant for the special the senior bureaucrats. And there was a protocol that is maintained. Like whenever we have such ceremonies, there is a protocol which is an integral part of such official functions. And Sir had noticed one of the officers ripped off the name plate where he had to sit, and there was a proper sitting arrangement with name plates on the table. And this officer saw the officer to rip off the name plate, and it was lying on the ground just to pave a way for his senior officer to get the front row vision of the parade. And that could have a lot of implication why he did, so that we can delve later. So as Sir witness, it was noticed by other colleagues of Sir as
I think she has somehow, we lost the contact. Let me complete the case study. There were other senior officers sitting. They also witnessed that a particular person had ripped off all this. They kept quiet. I was getting a bit agitated. So when the concerned senior officer came and sat on a seat which was not meant for him. Yes. I think we lost you for a while. Yeah, go ahead. Again, we've lost you. Anyway, let me complete the case study. We can discuss this. So I went over and told that senior officer, because the ripped off nameplate was lying below the chair. So I showed it to him that this does not belong to you. Unfortunately, one of your junior colleagues had created this for you. So then he apologized to me and he backed out. As I was coming back, I was complimented by two other secretaries who said I did the right thing. Manisha, are you there? Oh, we've lost her totally. Okay, so I think the questions that come here is, number one, whether an officer who's sitting there should have actually taken note of a wrong that was happening close by, whether he should have gone over and spoken to the concerned officer. Number three, whether the other officers who complimented the officer who went and spoke, shouldn't they have also gone in and stopped that? Any response? I've completed. Manisha, I've completed.
I'm so sorry, sir. It was
doesn't matter. So if you have the questions, you can repeat it again. I was doing it from memory. What are the questions in the end?
Sir, I have a question. Like, I want to know more about what do we mean by silent conscience, in the sense that we can use this concept in our other events where ethics is involved, because these sort of events happen in different ways, and we come across such places where people choose to stay indifferent to matters which are important. So, how it damages the entire governance machinery, and
So
how
this was okay. This was not that big an event. But this silent conscience is about the silent conscience of the society, where wrongs happen in front of their eyes and they keep silent. That is silent conscience. They know that it is a wrong. You know, the two officers who complimented me because they thought it was a wrong. But yet they didn't either have the courage or they didn't want to go out and stop a wrong from being done. Now, let's not jump the gun. Let's say first, whether it was because that was not my duty. My duty was, I had no other duty but to observe what was going on in the Republic Day parade. If a wrong was happening, I was not a cop sitting there to stop people from doing wrongs. Whether it was right on my part to go and stop it, that is question number one. Any answers for that? I see 3 hands coming here. Shiny Prasad, you haven't spoken so far, so go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So I am Cindy Prasad.
Yes.
So my take on this question would be, it was very correct on your part to intervene and to take the corrective measure, because it basically shows the qualities of discipline and punctuality in the short context, wherein you stick to the protocols and to the service rule, and this discipline and punctuality in the basic administration will help in good administration.
Okay, let me before you proceed, you all don't have to make me happy. You know, I've had my happiness. So you're free to disagree with what I did. You know, if you read the book, there are many places I have myself criticized that I shouldn't have done that. So you don't have to make me happy that what I did was, it's not material to me now at all. So be forthright. And second, I'll keep taking you back to the structuring of an answer as was done by Anthony. You know, if you can get into the habit of structuring, you are trying it. You are looking at the values of a civil servant and try and look at the values. You have to read the chapter on values of a civil servant thoroughly, because all case studies, you have to fit in those values. Which of the values? So value number 1 is not as much punctuality, because punctuality was not an issue here, but in terms of integrity, of not enabling. Your conscience was not silent. You wanted to see that a wrong has not been done, though it was not your duty. I was not duty bound to stop him, but as an informed officer, an enlightened officer, if a wrong happens, even as a common citizen, if a wrong is happening in front of you, it's your duty to point out that, because if you allow that wrong to continue to happen, many more wrongs will happen. And it's, as a citizen, it's your duty to at least point out that wrong should not happen. So that's the limit point here. Okay. Sini, Tanish, you wanted to say something?
I think I agree with you when you say a person is bound towards society. If you're living in a society, then ethics and morals bound you to take the right thing, make the right thing happen. I think I agree with you, sir. Yeah, that's it.
So the second question was whether the 2 officers who complimented me, whether they were right in not going there. You know, it emanates from the first question. That's where the silent conscience part comes in, because that is where the conscience was silent. Now, the fact that they complimented me was the reason that they felt that what was being done was wrong. You know, had they not complimented me, meant that they were indifferent to it. They were not indifferent to it. Indifference is also wrong. But then the issue of silent conscience doesn't come, because you don't have one. You're indifferent. You have a conscience, but you are silent. You understanding this point of view? All of you? Okay, Santhony would like to add anything? Because I really loved the way you answered the last question.
Yes, sir. So I was thinking on the point of integrity, and I was thinking integrity is about believing and doing those principles not only when others are watching, even when others are not watching. It's duty for the sake of duty, and duty does not has to always come from legality or constitution. It has to be at times from personal also. So in this sphere, you were not concerned that whether you were legally bound or for any matter, it was your personal you felt it as a personal duty because of your conscience, because it acted as your guide in this respect. So for the other officers, I think it was they I for them it was not about that they lack integrity. It was something like it was not strong enough that they would go out of that. They were not like duty for the sake of duty only, they were just performing the duty. So I think that was what differentiated your action from the others who complimented you later.
Thank you, Sandhana. I think Varun hasn't spoken. He's raised his hand. Varun, yes, go ahead.
So I have a broader question, and you can cut me if I'm digressing. But the question is of balancing doing the right thing versus making enemies in the system. Now, this might not be that big of a situation, but in the long run, by repeatedly doing such things, you might make a number of enemies, and you will not be able to get a lot of work done a lot of time. So, how would you balance that in the long run? That is my question.
See, taking from the existing case, the assumption that you make enemies by pointing out the wrongs is wrong, because you'll end up making many more friends by pointing a wrong than not pointing a wrong. Okay, yes, you may end up making some enemies, but that's worth it. You don't have to befriend everyone. And secondly, your job doesn't get stopped because you are stopping people from doing wrong work. Okay,
so
right. So we won't. Yeah. Yes, Varun.
Are there situations where you would actually choose to remain silent for this reason?
Oh, yes. Not this one, but there are many cases where you choose to remain silent. You know, I am very fond of using this phrase by Reinhold Niebuhr. He's an American monk. He says, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change things that I can, and the wisdom to understand the difference between the two. So if you read Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, I did give up on a few cases. You read it and you'll find out, because there are many cases where I give up, because if you don't learn to give up on occasions, you'll end up fighting with everybody. As you said, you don't have to fight every battle, but you have to pick your battles and fight. Okay, so we go to the next one. Mona Lisa Das, still not around. Okay, Prarthana.
Yes, sir.
Please unmute yourself. Where are you, Prarthana? I can't see you.
Sir, I'm speaking.
You're very
Sir, now
mild voice I'm getting.
Is it better now?
No, it's very, I can't hear you properly. Can you be louder?
So now is it better?
Now it's much better. I can see you and I can hear you as well.
Okay, sir.
Please go ahead.
So this is not a case study from any book. This happened with a person close to me last week in a government office. So it was a very unethical incident. So she is the daughter of a single working mother with the annual income of less than 5 lakhs. So she is in the category of EWS. So she is eligible to get the EWS certificate from the government. So now, sir, she looks up the documents required to get the certificate, and then she goes to her tehsil, where the certificate is to be made. So, sir, before even entering the office, she sees hundreds of people with chairs, desks, and one typewriter, providing with EWS certificate for a sum of 5,000 rupees or 6,000, and lower than this only, but the upper limit was 6,000 rupees. So, sir, obviously she's not in a position to pay that much money or get it made through that way, and moreover, she wants to go the correct way, and she decides to go to the office and then find out what is the procedure. So she goes inside, and there are 4 people you need to get a sign from to get the certificate made. So she finally finds the first person, and he says, "आप यहाँ से चले जाओ क्योंकि अभी यूपी इलेक्शंस हैं और 10 तारीख से पहले कोई काम नहीं होगा." So she persists and she requests the person that you please keep my documents. If possible, just pass it on to the person B. So he says, fine, keep it. After 3-4 days, I'll call you and I'll update. He does not call after 4 days. When she calls, he insists that she comes back to the office and hints her on paying a bribe. So now she has no option left. She goes, and then even the personal assistants of these 4 people, they also say that they are busy with elections and they won't be able to help, and they insist on paying bribes. So she comes out and she requests to please hand over the papers back, because at that point for her, getting that certificate made from the outside people was much easier than getting that certificate made from the people inside, because they were making it very, very difficult for her. And they pointed out very random things in the documents that they found were wrong. And she did not find anything wrong with her documents personally. So she actually threw her documents at her back and said, "Jisse banana hai, banana." So she comes outside and asks one of the people कि अब मैं क्या करूं? तो he says, देखिए अब आपके papers उनकी नजर में आ गए हैं, तो हमें नहीं पता, हम कोशिश कर सकते हैं. So now she has to pay the sum of 5,000 rupees to an outsider and get that certificate made. So sir, I have multiple questions in this regard. The first one is employing all of the government officials on election duty, is that right? Because the Patwari, the Lekpal, even their personal assistants are busy with the election work. So sir, is that right? Putting all the human capital into elections.
See, you are raising illegal issues that are totally illegal, asking for bribe. There's no ethics here. It's codified, it's wrong. And then you are raising administrative issues rather than ethical issues.
Sir, actually,
so we must try and understand. We must understand the difference between ethical issues, administrative issues, and illegal issues.
Yes.
This is very important because this sort of a case study will not come. This may be a grievance of a person, and very right grievance. And you have raised a right administrative question, not an ethical question. Because having conducted elections myself, quite a few of them, election is such an exercise where you can't do an election without a lekpal. You can't do it. So they are required. People talk about teachers. You can't do elections without teachers because they have to be there. So these are administrative necessities. However, I'm now purely speaking from an administrative point of view, not ethics. There's no ethics in it. An officer, if he so desires, can actually, the official activities of administration can continue despite elections. So again, there's no ethics in it. It's basically administrative incompetence of the officer sitting there for not doing their regular job and using election as an excuse for not doing their job. So whereas the grievance raised is absolutely correct, needs to be addressed. And maybe in separate session, I'll explain to you how it can actually be done because I did it. I mean, in my district, the other activities did not come to a halt. I mean, they would be hung if they gave this reason to anybody that I'm busy with elections, I can't do it. No, the normal work should go. But that's not ethical. It's not an ethical issue. It's a purely administrative issue. It's unethical for the supervising officer, for the district administration, to allow administrative machinery not to do anything except election work. So I'm stopping it here because we can carry on this discussion on the administrative front, but I don't think such a case study you will get in the civil service. Here we are absolutely focused on case studies that would come. I don't think this sort of a case study will come. We go on to Shivani now. Shivani, are you there? Shivani?
Yes, sir. Hello. Good evening, sir.
Yes, Shivani, please go ahead. Narrate your. If you can open your video, that would be better. But if you can't, fair enough.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Yes.
Sir, my case study is very much similar to what just Prathna told. It's related to a similar incident which I and my colleagues we have faced recently. So I work for a state government department in a state, and over there, so the issue is like regarding the pay scale structure. So basically, I'm a Group B employee, but the job that I'm in all the states except for my state, the AICT pay scale is already applied. However, in Odisha, this is the only state which has not been done. And regarding this, so we need to go through a lot of process. So there's a lot of file work which needs to be done. Our government, our work has fulfilled all the criteria technically that is needed to get into the AICT pay scale. However, when we are going for the file work and because we need the approval of the finance department to get through the, to go through the higher scales of pay. So when we are going through these matters, we come to, and this has been going on since last 5 to 6 years. So this has been a long journey, and still we are not able to do it. And when we are trying to approach the senior authorities and those people who are leading this movement, we come to know that the clerical staff and the other officers, concerned officers, they are not making the file process happen, stating the reasons. There are different reasons. They are stating different reasons per se, because of which a team is getting formed wherein everyone feels of the opinion to to bribe as and where it is needed and get the approval done for the AICT. So the thing is, in such cases, what happens, the entire strength of the cadre is somewhere around 200 plus, and around 70 to 80% of them are very openly agreeing to go for the route of bribe so as to achieve a longer goal, which is AICT, which is we deserve. However, there are people like me and some more who are, openly saying that no, we are not in favor of it. We know that we deserve it, but not in this route. And by saying so, we are being sidelined, or we are being looked down, and that is the case, sir. So how to deal in such cases?
So again, this is this is a grievance. Let's try and understand the difference between a grievance and an ethical issue. What the others are doing is, it is illegal. So what are we discussing here? Illegality and grievance. I may have a suggestion to you separately, but not here. This is not an ethic case study. So was the case with Pratna. These are grievances, and very genuine grievances that you have and need to be addressed. But there is no ethics part involved in it. The only ethical part that I see here is the incompetence of senior officials to allow this to happen. That is unethical of them. Why? Because they may or may not be getting the bribe part that is going there. But to allow inefficiencies to creep in is unethical on their part. Because again, inefficiency, there's no code of conduct. Inefficiency is unethical. Again, if you read my book, and I had sent across, I don't know if you had the occasion to read an article that I had written, which is the first chapter of my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, that it pays to be ethical. There I have touched upon certain aspects of efficiency, of supporting your staff. Now, whether you support your staff or not, it is not illegal or legal. It is purely in the realm of ethics. What you are telling me is illegal. So I have yet to come across a case study in the previous exams, and I don't think it will come, to ask you whether you should do something illegal. Obviously you can't do anything illegal.
Yes, sir.
So purely from the examination point of view, I sympathize with you. I appreciate the issue that you're raising, but it has nothing to do with your civil service exam. So I'm sorry, I'm cutting you down here, but you have a very genuine grievance. Maybe separately, if you tell me, I'll talk to the Chief Secretary Odisha and try and get it faster done. But that has nothing to do with the ethics paper. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Now, Rudrashis.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I have taken a question. This mentions that in a modern democratic polity, there is a concept of the political executive and permanent executive. Elected people's representatives form the political executive, and bureaucracy forms the permanent executive. Ministers frame policy decisions and bureaucrats execute these. In the initial decades after independence, the relationship declined. There is an increasing tendency among the political executive to get involved in routine administrative matters such as transfers, posting, etc. Under this scenario, there is a definite trend towards politicization of bureaucracy. The rising materialism and acquisitiveness in social life has also adversely impacted upon the ethical values of both the permanent executive and the political executive. So there's only one question that says that what are the consequences of such activities being carried out?
So Rudrashis, this is apparently not a case study. We will have a separate session on answering questions.
Okay.
And so the approach to answering questions will be a trifle different from case studies. So today you hold this question on, okay? We'll have a separate session on questions. I'll pick up questions from the papers that have come, and we can take this question also. I can answer that now, but it will digress from the manner in which case studies, because we are right now on case studies. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Saini, you have your hands up for any specific reason? No? You
No,
are
sir,
mute.
that's by mistake. Sorry, sir.
Okay, Prarthana, you wanted to say something? Unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, be slightly louder, speaking to your mic.
Yes, sir. So I'm
Yeah.
so sorry for going back to my grievance. It was actually not a case study. I understand that. So, sir, if I change the question, if I say what should a civil servant do in such a situation, because it is under his or her.
Okay, let me answer, because I've done that. Such cases came and it actually got done, and that's why I keep telling all of you, read Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant. You'll find all these answers there, sitting there. I'll give you a parallel example. And since I didn't face exactly this situation, but a slightly different situation, there is a chapter called Copy That in Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant. One of the grievances that a lot of poor people had was that they had to pay a lot of money to get a copy of revenue record. Like you require a certificate, they want a copy of revenue record from the record room. And it is, then I coined a phrase for it, which is now very popular, is speed money. That you expedite a process. Normally it will take 20 days. Otherwise, if you pay the money, it gets done in 4 days. So I used to hear these complaints, and the process was very, very cumbersome. First, you took that record out, and this I'm talking of 1990, mind you. Then that document was taken out. Then it was handwritten by somebody in the same manner as in the document. Then it was checked by a second person and certified by the third person, and then the document was used. This was the process going on. So what I did was, photocopying machines were just emerging. I think most of you would not have been born then, but photocopying machines were just coming out. So I got this bright idea of getting a photocopying machine in this revenue recorder. And what that did was, it just, all the corruption vanished. Why? Because the copies were handed over on that day itself to everybody. So speed money was not required. You had to require that innovator. But what happened thereafter? Whole delegation of advocates came to meet me. And they said, sir, hamare पेट पे लात क्यों मार रहे हैं? I said, क्यों? बोले सर, कुछ हमें मिल जाता था, कुछ हम अहमद को दे देते थे, कुछ कॉपियर को दे देते थे, सबका काम चल रहा। तो सब काम खत्म हो गया। That was my first experiment with technology. And as coal secretary, finally, I eliminated large-scale corruption of lakhs of crores through the use of technology. So what you are saying is, this has actually been sorted out in Haryana. In Haryana, they've actually digitized almost 500 such processes where a common man had to go to a government office to get a document like that. Now they can go to a kiosk, a private kiosk, and apply and actually track their application, and the officers are mandated to deliver that document within a specified period of time. It is still evolving, it's not perfected, but technology can do that. So in all such situations, actually in coal, as coal secretary and education secretary, I did not have any such complaint because we had eliminated paperwork. There was no file in education ministry or coal ministry. Everything was digital. So as Secretary Government of India, I was aware about who's sitting on which file for how many days, how many minutes, how many hours. And I didn't have to point out everyone moved the file. There was not a single complaint of delays in delivering it. So you can do it. I can go on and on. If you read the book, you'll find many such instances where we managed to do this. It is eminently possible. Now, where does ethics come in? And again, if you read the book, you'll get the essence of ethics. Ethics is efficiency. There is a chapter in my book, honesty alone is not enough. Officer is supposed to be efficient. He should be able to deliver. Many of us have, I've been transferred 40 times. So what's the big deal? You have to be honest, but you have to deliver. So persons like Prarthana or a friend need not have to go to a tout to get it done. You can eliminate them through technology. In almost every profession or every job that I had, I probably managed to eliminate the middlemen in most of the cases. It can be done. So that's the answer to your question. It has more to do with administration, some to do with ethics. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any other issue that you have? Then I have a couple of case studies that I had picked up. Prashant, please go ahead.
Sir, the issue is related to basically technology and why, as we all know, and we have also studied in various newspapers, that technology can bring a large change in governance. but we have seen that is not applicable in various parts. मतलब हमें सबको पता है कि टेक्नोलॉजी बहुत कुछ कर सकती है, बट हम भी देखते हैं कि मैंने अपना EW सर्टिफिकेट बनाने गया, वहां पे अभी भी लैंड रिकॉर्ड्स, कोई भी रिकॉर्ड बहुत पेपर वर्क पे चला है।
आप जब कलेक्टर बनिएगा तो कर दीजिएगा, ठीक है
सर। आई जस्ट वांट टू नो कि क्यों नहीं कर पा रहे सर, व्हाट इज स्टॉपिंग देम?
बिकॉज़ आप जैसे लोग नहीं है ना वहां पर, जब सर्विस में आ जाते हैं तो कुछ और सोचने लगते हैं, ये है प्रॉब्लम। टेक्नोलॉजी है, अभी सब बड़ी बड़ी बात करते हैं, जब यहाँ ज्वाइन कर लेते हैं तो फिर अपनी सोचते हैं, वो लाल बत्ती की सोचते हैं। आप भी सोचते हैं क्यों ज्वाइन कर रहा है पायस, लाल बत्ती लगेगी, क्यों ज्वाइन कर रहा है पुलिस, डंडा मिलेगा। ये सब जोश इस समय देखिए, आप ये जोश बनाए रखिए, मुझे 38 साल के बाद भी ये जोश है। आई एम स्टिल पोस्ट रिटायरमेंट trying to work with governments to bring about transparency in their functioning, to bring about total disconnect. If you eliminate physical interface between common man and government servant, then corruption will come down dramatically.
Yes, sir, definitely.
And that's how it should be. Okay, so
thank you, sir.
Not going into administration, since there is, we've already spent an hour and a half. Let me take one case study because I found this a good case study. This was asked in 2017. Okay. The case study is, you are the head of the human resource department of an organization. One day, one of the workers died on duty. His family was demanding compensation. However, the company denied compensation because it was revealed in investigation that he was drunk at the time of accident. The workers of the company went on strike, demanding compensation for the family of the deceased. The chairman of the management board asked for your recommendation. What recommendation would you provide to the management? Discuss the merits and demerits of those recommendations. Any response? Did you all listen to it carefully as I read, or I read it very fast? So what recommendations would you do? This is from the examination paper I'm reading.
Sir, can you repeat the questions?
The question is, what recommendations would you provide to the management in terms of providing compensation to the family of a worker who was found to be drunk and he died while working, and discuss the merits and demerits of the recommendation? Now, these are questions you don't have to study ethics to answer these questions. Most of these questions are commonsensical, and the idea of discussion today is how to package that answer. What are the values that you will bring in to answer that question? I see a number of hands. I would come to you, Santani, in the end, because you do it so well that there's nothing other left. So I have Siddhanshu Dubey as the newcomer here, because Aditya and Tanish has spoken before. Siddhanshu, please go ahead.
Sir, I think empathy is involved here. So as a head of HR, the compensation should be provided, but there is a demerit that when the compensation is provided, other cases of such demands would arise. That is what I think.
So, the essence of the answer appears to be all right, but you have to structure it better. The approach is absolutely correct, what your approach is, but the structuring will have to be slightly better for you to get, because you have to write 150 words. Okay, I give the floor to Tanish.
I think since the person has died while working, however, it was not correct on his part of being drunk. I think the compensation should be provided to his family in terms of reminding the union also ki what he has done is wrong. There has to be a certain balance, because it was not ethical from that person to be drunk and work in the institution. So I think there has to be some negotiations that should be held.
Tanish, when I think I forget her name, Santana, or when she speaks, listen to her carefully, because what you're saying has to be packaged appropriately. There should be no confusion in your articulation. All of you are saying the right thing, but if you don't present it appropriately, if I were you, I would like to question first. Worker did wrong. There's no doubt he was drunk. Should the family be penalized for his default? Right. Should the family be allowed to? That's where the empathy part comes in. And then, as someone rightly put it, for the larger consequences so that others may not also keep getting drunk. Because, no one would want to die. He's paid the ultimate price of you can't call it an ethical flaw in his part. I mean, he paid the ultimate price. What else can he pay? So he's already done that. Rishabh, you are raising your hand for the first time. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Sir, in my point of view, providing compensation would be a bit wrong because it would.
Okay, just hold on, because your voice is not very clear. Hold on, Rishabh. I caught the initial part. You can't start your answer by saying it's totally wrong or totally right. You can't. I have told you many times. Your conclusion have to come after you do an analysis. Starting by saying it's totally wrong.
Okay,
if the examiner doesn't give you negative mark, I'll be very surprised.
Okay.
I mean, I've been repeatedly saying you can't start with a conclusion in the beginning. If you can't structure your arguments and then come to a conclusion, even then, you can't use the phrases like it's totally wrong or totally right. You're too young to come to conclusions. Even at my age, I have not come to conclusions on such cases. And you're saying it's totally wrong or totally right. Don't use such phrases. And this is a suggestion to all of you. Okay. Who else hasn't spoken? All those that have hands here have spoken. Saini, you want to say something?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So my recommendation would be to provide compensation to the deceased family. The merits of this recommendation would be the strikes would end on an immediate basis. Secondly, the trust of the employees will be restored on the company, and also the empathetic part of the trust would be highlighted. However, the demerits of this option would be it will set a wrong precedence among the employees that even such unworthy actions in the company premises would get compensated, and many such future action may follow. So
Okay, Saini, your answer appears to be okay, but the sequencing has to change. And everyone should listen to this presentation of an answer very, very. Since your ultimate conclusion would be, I would assume, to grant compensation, don't start with that. Start first with demerits. And then come to merit, because that's your conclusion.
Yes, sir.
And in merits, sequence it properly. Your first reason for giving compensation is not doing away with the strike. First reason is the empathy part.
Okay.
Would you agree or don't agree?
Yes, I would agree, sir. Yes, sir.
It is because you have seen as empathetic employee that you do that, not because of strike. Strike is also a consequence, but that can't be the first reason. Again, I keep telling you all this because all of you would know the answers, because ethics is common sense. All of us have common sense. The difference is how do you present common sense here. Now, where is that lady gone who used to do so well? I forgot. I should have noted down her name. The one who give nice answers. Are you around? I complimented. Yes, Anthony. Yes, please go ahead. How would you answer this question?
Sir, as they are asking, like, what would you do as a head of HR? So I think I would have approached it like, as a head of HR, my duty is to maintain a healthy work culture and to establish a relationship where the workforce is in sync with the management. So keeping that in mind, I would take the following decisions. So as I will start with the demerit, but demerit of not giving the compassion, not giving the compensation will be first, that the family will suffer. So this will not be right. So to show the compassion that the compassion and the empathy that the corporate have for its workforce, so it should be justified that it should give the compensation. But nevertheless, the worker was at fault. So that this does not, it sends a right message to the entire workforce. So a certain proportion should be deducted from that, and then the compensation should be given.
I think that, again, very brilliantly put. Now I can carry on. I see more hands, but I won't take it because we've run out of time. I hope you all benefited from this. We will have some more sessions on case studies, and we'll also have a session on questions, as Rudrash said, if you all want it, at a subsequent date. But I want to make a couple of announcements. One, of course, Vatsalya had worked very hard to create a feedback form, but we'll not go by that. What I would suggest is, like in the past, I would like all of you to convey your feedback one-on-one through a direct WhatsApp message to me. Whatever your feedback about this is, whether you're satisfied, dissatisfied, improvement, how it could be done, what else can be done. I'd like to do that. Then the second announcement is that I have started a separate group for those that have qualified or those that qualified prelims last year and appeared in the written exam this year. And like last year, I've started my sessions for assisting people who are likely to appear in interviews. So those that have given written exam amongst you can join that group also, because that will have a slightly different thrust. That will be preparation for the interview. And third is, many of you had approached me for essay writing. So what I have decided is on the 1st of February, and I'll announce it in the group also, at 7 p.m., we'll take up some specific essay topics and see how do we approach an essay. Now, again, like an ethics paper, I will take up a few topics that have been asked during previous years, or if you all suggest whichever topic that you want, we'll take up those topics. And obviously, we'll not write essay. I'll tell you how to approach that essay. Again, the idea is to equip you to write an essay on any topic. The question is approach. Like in ethics paper, I'm not giving you the answers. Answers are coming from you. How you package an answer, how do you approach a case study? That's very, very important. So with these words, I say good night to all of you. Thank you for joining and look forward to your feedback on this issue.
Thank
All
you
the
so
best.
much.
Take care.
Good night, sir.
Thank you.